This private jet cost $10 million to buy. Keeping it will cost you around $3 million more every year, and most of that bill arrives whether the jet ever leaves the ground or not. That's the part nobody tells you. The purchase price, the $10 million everyone fixates on, is the cheapest and most honest number in the whole deal. It appears once. Everything after it is a machine that runs quietly for as long as you own the aircraft, converting your money into altitude and then into nothing at all. So let's do what a broker never will. Let's open the ledger on a private jet, every dollar in and every dollar out, and find out what it actually costs to own the most misunderstood status symbol on Earth. Start with the purchase, because even the $10 million figure is hiding something. Private jets cover an enormous range. A small, older, very light jet can be had for $2 to $5 million. A mid-size jet, the practical sweet spot a successful person actually buys, runs around $10 million. And at the top, an ultra-long-range flagship that crosses oceans without stopping climbs past $100 million. So let's buy a sensible one, a solid mid-size jet. $10 million on the ledger. Here's the first thing the glossy brochure buries. The moment you take delivery, a private jet behaves like a luxury car leaving the lot. Except the numbers are monstrous. A jet typically loses 10 to 15% of its value in the first year alone, then 5 to 10% every year after. On a $10 million jet, that first year of depreciation is up to $1.5 million, gone, before you count a single other cost. And unlike a house or a plot of land, this isn't a dip it recovers from. A jet only ever heads one direction, and that's down. Now the fantasy takes over. You picture the freedom. Skip the airport lines, the security, the delays. Fly on your schedule, from the small field near your house, straight to wherever you need to be. That freedom is real, and it's one of the most valuable things money can buy. But it isn't what you bought. You bought a business, a small and heavily regulated aviation company, and you're its only passenger, its only investor, and the single source of every dollar it will ever spend. Let's open the second half of the ledger, because this is where owners get ambushed. A private jet has two completely separate cost worlds, and confusing them is how people go broke. There are the costs of flying it, and there are the costs of simply having it. The second set, the fixed costs, arrive on schedule no matter what. A jet that never moves all year still sends you an enormous bill. Let's start there, because that's the part that shocks people. Crew first. A mid-size jet legally requires 2 pilots, a captain and a first officer, both highly trained professionals who cost accordingly. An experienced business jet captain earns somewhere between $150,000 and $220,000 a year. A first officer, $80,000 to $130,000. Add benefits and the crew, for one mid-size jet, runs well over $250,000 a year, often closer to $400,000. And here's the trap inside the trap. That cost is completely fixed. Your pilots earn the same whether the jet flies 300 hours or 3. You can't send them home in a slow month, because a jet without a current, trained crew can't legally move. On top of salaries, both pilots have to complete full motion simulator training every 12 months, at $25,000 to $45,000 per pilot per session. Call it $50,000 to $90,000 a year, just to keep your crew legally allowed to do their jobs. Crew and training, on the ledger, comfortably over $400,000 a year, before the engines even start. Then the jet needs somewhere to live. You can't leave a $10 million aircraft parked out in the weather. A hangar at a major metropolitan airport runs $10,000 to $20,000 a month, and in New York or Los Angeles, large cabin hangar space now tops $15,000 a month on its own. Call it $100,000 a year to give your jet a roof. Then insurance, hull and liability cover for a multi-million-dollar machine moving at 500 miles an hour. That number has been climbing fast, with premiums jumping as much as 25% a year recently as insurers tightened up. Tens of thousands, often much more. Then management fees. Almost nobody owns a jet alone. You hire a management company to handle the crew, the scheduling, and the endless compliance paperwork, and they typically charge 10 to 15% of your annual operating cost. On a jet like this, that's hundreds of thousands a year by itself, and we still haven't taken off. Add up just the fixed costs, crew and training and hangar and insurance and management, and for a mid-size jet, before fuel, before a single flight, you're looking at $700,000 to over $1 million a year. Money that leaves your account, whether the jet flies to Paris or sits in the dark. Now, finally, we can fly it. This is the second cost world, the variable costs that climb with every hour in the air. Every hour that jet is airborne, it burns money at a rate that's hard to believe. For a mid-size jet, direct operating cost, fuel, maintenance, engine wear, runs well over $1,000 per flight hour. And for the big, ultra-long-range jets, it climbs past $6,000 or $7,000 an hour. Let me make that concrete, because the industry does. Take a large Gulfstream. Its direct cost is around $6,300 an hour. Fly it 300 hours in a year, not extreme for an active owner. And that's nearly $1.9 million in direct costs alone. Add the fixed costs on top, and that one aircraft costs its owner somewhere between $2.7 and $3.1 million for the year. The engines are their own quiet time bomb. Jet engines run on mandatory overhaul programs. Every so many hours, they must be inspected and rebuilt, whether they seem fine or not, at a cost that can run into the hundreds of thousands, sometimes more. First-time owners get blindsided by exactly this, over and over. The major inspection that arrives on a schedule the aircraft keeps, not the one your bank account would prefer. So let's total our mid-size jet honestly. Fixed costs of roughly $1 million a year, variable costs on top, depending on how much you fly, and the real-world all-in number lands right where the fantasy shatters. For a mid-size jet flown a normal amount, total annual ownership has climbed to around $3 million a year. Industry data shows that figure rose roughly 18% in just 5 years, as fuel, insurance, and crew wages all surged at once. $3 million a year, on the ledger, to own one mid-size jet. Now the move every prospective owner reaches for. The pitch that gets people to sign. I'll charter it out. When I'm not using it, other people rent it, and their money covers my costs. So let's turn to the income side, because this is the most seductive and most misunderstood part of the whole deal. It's true that you can put your jet on a charter certificate and rent it to others. Done well, at high utilization, chartering can offset a real chunk of your operating costs. In the best cases, 60 to 80% of your direct operating costs, if the jet flies a lot of charter hours. But read that carefully, because there are 3 traps hidden inside it. First, it offsets direct costs, the flying costs. It does far less against the big fixed costs that were killing you in the first place. The crew still get paid. The hangar bill still comes. Second, and this is the one that undoes the whole fantasy, the more you charter the jet to cover its costs, the more hours you put on it, and the faster it depreciates. Flying hours are one of the single biggest factors in how fast a jet loses value. So the very activity you're using to cover your costs is quietly destroying the asset faster. There is no amount of chartering that makes up for the value lost to depreciation. The more a plane is in the air, the faster it falls in worth. And third, the same trap we've seen on this channel again and again. The moment you charter your jet, it stops being fully yours. Strangers are now flying in your cabin, wearing your leather, booking your calendar. You lose the one thing you bought the jet for, the ability to fly at a moment's notice on your own schedule. If a charter client has it booked, your private jet is unavailable to you. So write it honestly on the income side. Charter is damage control, not profit. It softens the bleed. It doesn't stop it. Nobody who understands aircraft buys one expecting it to pay for itself, and the ones who charter heavily are managing a loss, not running a business. Now the fair side of the ledger, because we do this for every asset, and here, it genuinely matters. What does that $3 million a year actually buy? Not a return. It buys time, the one thing no amount of money can manufacture. For a person whose hours are worth more than almost anyone's, a private jet converts money directly into life. No security lines, no layovers, no waiting. 3 meetings in 3 cities in a single day, then home for dinner. The ability to leave in 20 minutes, from an airport 10 minutes away, to a runway near a town no airline serves. For the right person, one who flies constantly and whose time genuinely commands that premium, a jet isn't a toy. It's the most efficient tool they own, and that's the honest dividing line on this whole asset. A private jet flown 250 hours a year by someone whose time is truly that valuable is a rational, defensible tool. The exact same jet, bought for status and flown 40 hours a year, is one of the fastest wealth destruction machines a person can own. $3 million a year, $1.5 million in year 1 depreciation, to save a few hours a handful of times. The jet doesn't know the difference. The ledger does. So let's close it. $10 million to buy, up to $1.5 million gone to depreciation in the first year alone. Around $3 million a year to operate. A resale value that only ever falls, and falls faster the more you fly. And a charter dream that softens the loss but never erases it. Here's the strange truth the gleaming fuselage hides. A private jet isn't really a luxury. It's a conversion machine that turns enormous sums of money into time. For the tiny group whose time is worth more than the machine costs, it's the best trade they'll ever make. For everyone else who buys one, it's simply the most expensive way ever devised to skip a line at the airport. Which leaves the real question, and I want your answer, because there's a genuine argument on both sides. If a private jet only makes financial sense for someone whose time is worth thousands of dollars an hour, is it the smartest purchase the truly busy can make? A tool that literally buys back their life? Or is it proof that past a certain point, wealth stops buying freedom and starts buying a beautiful $3 million a year obligation that owns you? Tell me where you land in the comments. And ask yourself the harder version. At what price does convenience stop being worth it? And would you know if you'd crossed that line?